Come along with me while I interview a candidate and then hang around to the end to hear my analysis. Hi, Mason. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good, thank you. Great to see you, and I'm looking forward to interviewing you today. I just wanted to let you know about the process. So you're at stage three of a five-stage interview process. If you are successful in this interview step, you're going to move on to the next step, which is an interview test assessment. And then the final step is a group interview. So that's really the process over the next couple of weeks. So for this particular interview, we're only going to be asking you three questions that are behavioral situational questions. So if you're ready, we can get started.
Yes, I'm ready.
Alrighty, great. So the first question is regarding project scheduling and conflicts. So if you had a situation, or if you can consider a situation that you had in the past, where you had a conflict in prioritization of a deadline, where you're working on one project, but all of a sudden you get a new project put on your plate and it has a conflict, how do you address that conflict and manage that with your manager?
Well, first thing, I would evaluate the importance of this new project. After that, I would bring it to my manager and see what his ideas are about that. Most likely, he would just be saying to pursue this new and urgent project. So, whatever he says, I would continue doing. So, for instance, I would continue doing this new project. And afterwards, once I finish that one, I would continue going back to my original project and finish that in a timely manner.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mason. So the second question is regarding a manager disagreement. So, is there a situation that you can recall where you've had conflict or disagreement with your manager in terms of how something should be handled, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, for sure. So one time I did have a problem with a client. The client was very unhappy with the approach we took. So after that, I wanted to take it by one approach. However, my manager thought we should take a different approach, a more direct approach. So I so we had this little conflict between each other. I pleaded to my manager and provided a strong case as to why we should take my approach, and I eventually convinced my manager that it was the way to go.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Mason. So the last question I have for you is regarding diversity and inclusion. So if you're a team leader and you're kicking off a project with a team of new joiners to the company, and you have a very diverse group, how do you go about making sure that everybody feels included and that your communication style is addressing everybody's needs?
Well, first, I would recognize that people have very different skill levels in English in the group. So I would just immediately recognize that. And I would just want to make sure everybody is nice and comfortable in their situations, because that is one of the most important things I would have for the group. When I'm explaining my ideas, I would make sure I'm reading people's body language and verbal cues to make sure they're as comfortable as possible. If they aren't as comfortable, I would directly talk to them, hear them out, and just have a nice, calmly discussion with them to see what I can do to make them more comfortable. And then afterwards, I would individually ask everybody just to make sure they are on board with the idea and comfortable with the situation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mason. So, those are the three questions that we have for you today. The next steps are that you should hear back from us within approximately 1 week as to whether you're moving on to the next step of the interview. Do you have any questions for us?
I do not have any questions.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mason. We'll be in touch.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Overall, I felt that Mason did a decent job with the interview. A few of his responses lacked detail and structure. And at the end, when the question was asked to him whether he had any questions for us, he didn't take the opportunity to ask any questions and learn a little bit more about the opportunity. Mason also missed the opportunity to create a personal connection with the interviewer. We talk about IMI, being interested, memorable, and interesting. And this relates to the kind of conversation that you can strike up with the interviewer around the questions that are being asked, either at the beginning or the end. You want to stand out in the mind of that interviewer and do something to create a connection that is going to stand out in their mind when they're thinking about you later. So that would have been a great addition if Mason had done that. Regarding the question about prioritization, Mason might have discussed the situation if he was not able to discuss it directly with his manager, where he had to make a decision on his own without being able to run it by someone and weighing out the different consequences of those actions. In his response regarding diversity and inclusion, it would have been great to hear a little bit more detail about how he applies fairness in his management style with people and checks in with people to make sure that they are comfortable and that they have a full comprehension of the task at hand. Mason did come across as friendly and approachable, and he certainly appears confident and attacked each question, although a little bit nervous, had no problem jumping in, and appeared that he would be eager and willing to learn. Overall, Mason was likable. He showed up for the interview prepared. He was set up well for a video interview. He had excellent posture. He did seem engaged and very, very friendly and approachable. So on all of those fronts, I would definitely give Mason A marks.